Obviously, I missed the memo here. These two are quite Christmased out, but I do have some Tim Tebow merch. We're gonna get to him later. And hello, everybody. Welcome inside the Super Bowl podcast. This is episode 3, live from the GCU Recording Labs. I'm Braden Dorman, alongside me, David Arnold, Harper Hauk, and we are excited to continue to bring you guys content. This will be our last video of the 2022 year, and we hope you guys enjoy this one. Obviously, I missed the memo here. These two are quite Christmased out, but I do have some Tim Tebow merch. We're going to get to him later.
A little bit of a Christmas Grinch over here.
Yeah. Obviously missed the memo, for sure.
Yep.
Yeah, I missed that email. Clearly. Anyways, let's get in to just a good way to start this episode is really talking about what happened to our podcast in this last 2 weeks since our viewers have last seen us. We had discussions about potentially trying to post more clips to social media. We do have a passion for people seeing our content. We believe that it's good news and it's good stuff for people to see and content that social media needs. And we did have a really good discussion about it, and we eventually got to the point where we wanted God to give us that answer and pray about it. And I think it's pretty awesome what God did really immediately with this podcast.
Yeah, and through just discussions with each other, like you said, Dorman, just deciding where we want to go with this and like how much work God is asking us to put on the front end and just the logistics behind it, because we're new to this. This is just the beginning of this road, and obviously we want to honor and glorify Him through this. And it's just amazing, just another amazing story of what happened. For anybody who doesn't know, I mean, we had posts that were getting, a couple hundred views, and when we had this discussion, we were talking about, hey, what would it look like to upload more, and we prayed on it that night. Next day, uploaded a new, post, and it hit 7,000 views and blew up. And I guess the moral of this story is God's got us right where He wants us. And just if it's His will, it's going to happen. And you don't have to run ahead of God's will is really what I learned from this. And I think we all really found just how powerful and how awesome God can be. And just it's amazing how He can use a podcast and guys like us just for His glory.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think the easy answer would have been for us to take in our own hands and upload more. But we know God's at the center of this podcast, and we wanted to put that question in His hands. And we got quick clarity and perspective on it within a day, and that's just how God works. It's usually clear and it makes sense. And so here we are.
Yeah, and if you viewers believe in our mission of growing God's kingdom, if you ever see a clip that you feel like people should see, feel free to share it. That at the end of the day will help the algorithm on social media. But as we've kind of said this week, like God is the algorithm, and God clearly had a hand in what He did over this past week, and we're really excited to see what He continues to do as long as we remain faithful and continue to follow His will with this podcast. So that's the good news we wanted to start this off with. Now let's get into our first sports segment of the day. And this one is the New Year's 6 bowl picks, because we're not going to see you guys until after these conclude. So we're going to start it off with the Orange Bowl, Tennessee versus Clemson. Right now, Clemson is -6.5 against the Volunteers.
You want me to start?
You can start.
Yeah, I wonder who you'll
Tennessee
pick.
Yeah, for those of you who already know, I'm a Tennessee fan, so I'm not going to bet Clemson here. I'm going to go with my team. I think this should be an interesting game. No Hendon Hooker, no DJ, however you say his last name. So it should be interesting. And I think they both should wear their orange uniforms since
That'd
it's
be so
Orange
in the
Bowl.
Orange Bowl.
Just going to say it.
Yeah.
I mean, there had to have been a little bit of like, okay, these two teams are pretty similar. We could have picked some other teams, but they're both orange. Let's throw them in the Orange Bowl.
I mean,
Exactly. Come on.
perfect. But my pick may surprise you as well. I have Tennessee blowing out Clemson.
Okay.
And I mean by like 20 plus. Milton, the quarterback, he's for Tennessee.
He's legit.
He's fighting for his job, really, with the freshman coming in, right?
Yeah, Nico.
Nico, yeah.
Yeah.
So he's one of the best quarterbacks in the country coming in. And I think Milton, this is a game he proves to the world, I'm that guy.
Yeah.
Bowl games are always an opportunity to do that. I will not as confidently pick Tennessee over Clemson. I have said all year they're not that guy. And I did think Tennessee could have made the playoff if Hooker had stayed around and they maybe a couple games went a different way. But
Yeah.
I do think they're the better team. I think Clemson's going to be around a lot closer than maybe what David thinks. But sounds like unanimous. We're going Tennessee in the Orange Bowl.
That's
Next,
a sweep, baby.
to the Sugar Bowl. Kansas State taking on Alabama. Alabama right now -3.5. That one kind of surprised me, but I'll start it off. I've got Alabama winning that one. Nick Saban obviously wanted to be in the college football playoff.
Yeah.
I don't think he takes this one lightly. I know they may have some players sit out, and we'll figure that out closer too. But right now, since we have to pick it, I'm going Alabama, and I do think they'll cover that -3.5.
Not so fast.
Oh,
Kansas State,
Man.
book it. I think Alabama, like you said, players are going to sit out. Kansas State, all the momentum rolling right now after beating TCU. Give me Kansas State in a close game.
okay.
Okay. Well, I'm on the same wavelength as you, Dorman. I think Alabama is still one of the better teams in the country. And I think everyone in that building, Saban and the players, know they're better than what they performed this year. So I don't think they're really happy with number 9 Kansas State in the matchup. I don't think it's going to be close, actually.
Alrighty.
We'll see.
Next, the Cotton Bowl. Tulane will take on the USC Trojans, who had every opportunity in the world to make the college football playoffs themselves. They do have the Heisman quarterback, Caleb Williams, at the helm. We'll see if he plays. I'm sure he will. He's not getting into any draft process anytime soon.
Mm-hmm.
So what do you guys got with that one?
USC. I'm still riding with them.
Yeah.
Caleb obviously is kind of a question mark because he got hurt in the Pac-12 title game. But if he's even 75% Caleb Williams, I think great story in Tulane this year.
Mm-hmm.
But I got USC winning that one by a couple possessions.
Yeah, I'm the same there. I was going to say Tulane, great turnaround. That's definitely got to be noticed. But yeah, I think Caleb Williams needs to play a good game here, especially after that lackluster performance in the Pac-12 championship. And yeah, I have USC winning this.
Yeah, I think Caleb needs to prove to the world why he won the Heisman. I do think it was a down year for the Heisman Award. I think there's been more obvious picks in the past, or there's just been really a guy that stood out.
Mm-hmm.
And this year, I wouldn't really say that was the case. I know you locked it in that Caleb Williams won, and sure, that makes sense. But there just wasn't that one guy that was just like, he's phenomenal, he's going to be amazing. Like, I didn't get that feeling.
I
agree. This is his chance to say, yes, I'm the Heisman, and I'm taking on a mid-major Tulane, and I'm going to smack them. I don't know if that will happen. The line's -1.5, which is a little weird to me.
Yeah.
Wow.
But
Really?
Ooh.
I'm going to go with USC pretty handedly.
Yeah.
All right, final one before the college football playoff, the Rose Bowl. Penn State Nittany Lions taking on the Utah Utes. Utah -2.5. I'll start. I'm going Utah. Pac-12's played well all season long, and that's not going to change today. Utah beat USC to take USC out of college football playoff contention. They win these games. Players don't sit out for them. They take every game seriously, and that's not going to change today. I think they cover that -2.5. I don't really know how else. Probably not going to win by 1 or 2. And they are a little closer to the Rose Bowl, so I think their fans will travel. I think Utah wins this one.
That's a good point. Yeah, so I'm actually going to go Penn State here. I think both these teams are well coached, and they both had pretty good years. I think it's going to be close either way, but I have Penn State coming out on top. They have a duo of freshman running backs that are really good. So,
Yeah.
They do.
I'm going with you, Dorman. I'm going Utah. I like my momentum going into bowl games, Pac-12 championship.
yeah.
Had to feel good. Utah.
Alrighty, well, this is the moment we've all been waiting for, the college football playoff. Not only are we going to pick these two semifinal games, but we're going to even go a step further and say after those games are correct, what happens in the championship. So, starting off in the Fiesta Bowl, it's TCU versus Michigan, the 3 versus the 2. Harper, who wins that one?
I'm going Michigan on this one. I think you have to give credit to TCU and their offense. It's very explosive. But I think if Michigan's able to run the ball well and just take the time of possession, I don't think TCU has enough in it to win this game. So
Yeah,
I got Michigan.
I agree. I think this is going to be a very good game, though.
It should be.
I think low scoring. I'm going like 24-21 Michigan
Ooh.
on a game-winning field goal. Calling it.
Okay.
Michigan's -7.5. I don't think they covered that. They don't really blow teams out. I know they took out Ohio State pretty well, but there's some kind of garbage time points. I do think this one's close. It'll be probably. I actually expect two really good games this year.
Yeah.
I do too.
In the semifinals, which
Yep.
is not normal. So maybe we're missing something here. There's usually at least one blowout, but I'm going to go Michigan in a close one as well.
Mm-hmm.
Alrighty, Ohio State, number 4 seed versus Georgia. Harper?
I'm going Ohio State on this
I
one.
figured.
man.
Okay, so I have no bias. I am not a fan of either Ohio State or Georgia, and I'm not salty. I'm just saying. I think it's incredibly hard to go undefeated in a complete season, and I think that's kind of Ohio State's advantage going into this game. They've already lost a game, and they got to learn from that, and now they have a chip on their shoulder. Georgia last year, they lost in the SEC championship, but then they went on to go and win the national championship. I don't know. I think crazy things happen in the playoffs, and I got Ohio State here.
Okay.
I got Georgia. I do. I think it's going to be a very close game, though. Like we're saying, I think this is going to come down to one play on Georgia's defense. I think will stand up when it matters most, and they'll get the job done. Like I'm going with like a 28-24 type game. Going to be a really good one.
Georgia's so good. They really are. However, I'm also going
Ooh.
with Ohio State.
Oh man!
Come on, baby. Come on.
Wow.
Since the college football playoffs began, no team has won back-to-back years. Georgia won it last year. They're looking really good, but they're not going to win it. History tells us things, and I believe that they're not going to go back-to-back this year. And if they're going to lose to somebody, I think Ohio State makes sense. From a matchup standpoint, I think Ohio State can put up points, and that's the only way you can beat Georgia, if you can crack that defense. Maybe they don't, but I'm expecting that they do, and I'm expecting a Big Ten championship in the national championship.
Me as well.
Wouldn't that be crazy?
Yeah.
That would be nuts with that. I got Georgia and Michigan, obviously.
Who do you have
And
winning that one?
I have Georgia going back to back.
Okay.
And I think it's going to be an extremely close game again. I think all the playoff games are going to be awesome. Like must watch.
Yeah, I
they're
do
going to be
too.
great. And I think this is going to be kind of another relatively low scoring game. I think Michigan controls the run game pretty well. But I think Georgia just makes a play on defense once again when it matters most. And they win in a close one. Probably another 28-24 type game to win the Natty back to back.
Yeah, so I'm going to go with my same point a minute ago. Michigan is going to be undefeated going into the national championship. Ohio State's going to have one loss to Michigan. It's hard to beat a good team twice. I'm going Ohio State.
All right.
Wow.
Number 4
Unfortunately,
seed.
I was hoping that I was going to be the crazy person, but I'm also going
Are
with
you
Ohio
kidding
State in
me?
this one. It was a very close game until the very end of the fourth quarter. Ohio State, they've won the national championship in the college football playoff one time. That was in 2014,
That's-
Ezekiel Elliott season. They were the 4 seed.
That's right.
They're going to do it again. They're going to get their revenge, and the Michigan trash talkers in that heated rivalry are really going to pay for the words that they put out just 3 weeks ago in the game, right? I think Ohio State comes back and gets that revenge, and that one might not even be that close. So I'm going OHIO. In the
Y'all
national
are
championship.
city. Y'all are crazy. They didn't
Nope.
even deserve to be in the playoffs, in my opinion. I mean,
Sure.
obviously things bailed out for them. No, they're out first round, in my eyes.
I mean, you
gonna be
can say
fun.
that, but they're in the playoffs,
They are.
and crazy
They
things
are.
happen.
It is football. Who knows, right? But not against Georgia.
Okay.
Perfect.
We'll
All
see.
right. Well, let's run through our locked and bolded picks before we get into the story of this podcast. I'm going to start us off. Last week on social media, I went with a lock about the Seahawks. It didn't work out too well, but this week
Oh,
I'm going
no.
back to them. Those are my
Jeez.
guys, and I'm going to tell you that the Seattle Seahawks will have a rookie of the year. No, I'm not picking them to beat the Niners. I don't think that's going to happen, unfortunately.
Oh, man.
But I'm going to say that they will have a rookie of the year, whether that's on the offensive end with Kenneth Walker or the defensive end with Tariq Woolen taking down your boy Sauce Gardner.
Wow. I'm glad you didn't go with the Niners, man. I thought you were going to be like, Seahawks going to beat the Niners. That ain't happening.
That would not be a lock, I'll tell you that.
I was like, that is unbelievable what you're about to say. But luckily I'm still here and I'm listening to your take. And I think that's a pretty good lock there, actually.
Cool.
That's fair.
As long as Walker can stay somewhat healthy the rest of the year, he's a beast.
Right.
So.
Is he back on Thursday?
I think he'll be back tonight when these viewers are watching. You guys haven't heard my bold take yet, though. We're going back to football. No, I'm not going Seahawks. I'm going to go with the Buccaneers over the Bengals this week. All right? Everybody was like, they stink after they got Brock Purdy'd, and I can understand that.
Brock
But
Purdy.
Tom Brady's going to
Shiesty.
bounce back like he has time and time again. I think they're going to take down the Bengals at home just because the Bengals are so hot and the Buccaneers are not. So it's just such an NFL thing to do
Yeah.
for the Bucs to take him down this week.
Yeah. I think, if it's Tom Brady, right? I mean, there's a pretty good chance when you got Tom Brady at quarterback that
Yeah.
you're going to play a good game. I couldn't believe that Niners game. That was crazy. But, yeah, I think Tom's going to be upset about that one, and he's going to get revenge on Mr. Burrow.
And I could also use it for fantasy purposes, but we won't even talk about that. Tom Brady, Chris Godwin, go get him this week. David?
All right. Well, this is going to pain me. My lock is the Bills are going to beat the Dolphins this weekend.
Oh, goodness.
Look, as a diehard Dolphins fan, this is not easy. We are traveling to Buffalo on Saturday night, where there is projected to be snow. I don't know if you guys know, but the Dolphins and snow don't go well together. I think we are going to lose that game pretty easily. Hopefully I'm wrong. You know what? If I'm wrong, sweet. But I wanted to have that lock just in case, because I'm not confident. Tua's not playing the best ball right now. It would take a pretty crazy performance for us to win that one in the cold, because we are not so good in the cold.
Already, I see it's a little safety blanket for you. You want something to go well if the Bills were to win that one. So there you go.
Well,
Smart.
Hey, man. There's just no chance for winning that game. I'm just going to say it, okay? But if we do, hey, amazing. Anyway, bold statement. I am going with football as well. Monday night, to be specific. I got the Rams beating the Packers. Baker Mayfield. And they're actually somehow, the Rams are 7.5-point dogs in this game, which is kind of crazy to me. Baker Mayfield has brought a whole new spark of momentum to that team. Aaron Rodgers just seems like we're done here. What's going on?
Yeah.
I think it's a perfect spot for the Rams to beat the Packers here. So that's going to be my bold.
I could see that happening too. I've heard bolder takes. I'm not going to lie.
Hey, they're 7.5.
Yeah, it's
Not your strongest bold take I've ever heard.
That's okay.
But,
It's bold enough.
And I was going to say,
it
what's
wasn't super bold. I'll tell you that much.
what's up with both of you betting on your own teams here?
He bet against his own team.
That is
But,
true.
But still, like, why are you guys bringing your own team into this? Just
You're talking about Tennessee every episode, bro.
yeah. Come on, man.
You talk about them Vols.
Hey, didn't
You start
he,
singing
hey,
Rocky Top
sorry,
before every episode.
Sorry, hold on. Didn't he pick, who'd you pick in the Tennessee Clemson game?
well, I had to. He's like,
Yeah, okay. All right.
I can't bet against my own team.
Oh.
on that.
Okay, then
I'm just saying,
why
you guys.
would-
Okay. All right. We'll just forget about that. Okay, so my lock for this week is that Argentina wins the World Cup final. This is likely Messi's last World Cup, so I think that's a lock. And then my bold statement is that the Jaguars upset the Cowboys.
Oh,
I'm rocking with the Jags.
Now that's bold.
Yep,
that sure is.
I'll give you that one. That one's bold.
it's in Jacksonville, so I think there's a good chance. But
Yeah.
I would definitely say the Jags are the underdogs there.
So for sure.
Yeah. And the Cowboys barely snuck out of the Houston Texans.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah,
But yeah, like it.
that's mine.
It's fair.
Well, you guys enjoy the NFL slate. That a lot of our bold predictions bold takes and locks came from that. Enjoy the playoffs for fantasy football. We know that is also coming up this week. Good luck. Alrighty, let's get into the story of the day, and it is centered around Tim Tebow. It is centered around the John 3:16 verse, and it really inspires anybody that hears it. And I'm really excited to bring this story to people that have not heard it. And it does start with Tim Tebow in college, where he decided to throw Philippians 4:13 on his eye black. Different players he saw would put maybe their mom's name or their friend's name, just different things. He was like, "What? How can I make a change?" And he went with Philippians 4:13, which is, "I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me." A really cool verse, one verse that I love myself, and he wore that all season his junior year. It really became a staple at the University of Florida, and a lot of people thought it was the good luck charm that season, as they really did have a great year. And obviously they had a crazy team with some characters on the team, which maybe we'll talk about on a later date. But what a crazy year for that team, and a lot of people were like, "Oh, it's because he's wearing Philippians 4:13." Get to the SEC championship. They beat Alabama. They're moving on to the national championship, and Tim Tebow feels like God's putting it on his heart to change the verse. And his head coach, Urban Meyer, was like, "Are you sure, man? I mean, Philippians 4:13 got us here, right?"
Yeah.
And he says, "I'm going to go with John 3:16. John 3:16 says, 'For God so loved the world that he gave his one and only Son, that whoever believes in him shall not perish but have eternal life.'" He really believed that encapsulated the life of a Christian. Mm-hmm. And it really does. He decided to go with it, and they won the national championship. And the day later, he learned that 94 million people Googled John 3:16, which we talked about at the start of the show, how we were just excited about the thousands of views we were starting to get on our clips. Mm-hmm. 94 million takes it to a whole nother level. And on that national stage, it was pretty cool to see him having success and people being curious. And just that spark could have started it for so many people. The cool part is 3 years later, to the day, January 9th, 2009, he won the national championship. January 9th, 2012, he starts in his first NFL playoff game, Broncos versus Steelers. Most of you watched that game and you remember exactly what happened. First play of overtime, he finds Demaryius Thomas on a crossing route.
Yep.
Yeah.
And the Broncos win to get Tebow his first win in the wild card. After the game, he hadn't even been thinking about John 3:16, and his PR guy came up to him and said, "Do you even realize what happened?" And Tim had no idea. He said, "This is 3 years exactly to the date later that you wore John 3:16 on your eye black." And he said, "You threw for 316 pass yards. There were 31.6 yards per completion. 31.06 was the time of possession. The TV ratings were 31.6, and the yards per rush were 3.16. And 90 million people Googled John 3:16. I mean, when you talk about miracles, that is a miracle right in front of all of our eyes.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And what an amazing, just an absolutely amazing story of how Tim was simply just obedient by changing eye black, changing what he's writing on his eye black, to all of a sudden this amazing move from God just out of that step of obedience. He was immediately rewarded in the moment, but that wasn't even, that's just the beginning, And 3 years later, the ultimate, just incredible moment, and just the sovereignty of God. I think that's really the greatest example I can see of just God is in control of every area. What are the odds? Somebody's got to do the math on that, right? Of 316 passing yards, 31.6 yards per completion, 3.16 yard per rush, like all this stuff lining up, the TV ratings. How can you not say that's God?
Right. Yeah, and I think it's interesting to see how Tebow did such a simple switch, and he was giving the little bit he had to God, and God multiplied it to use to glorify His kingdom. And I think I think there have been a lot of instances in our life where we can go back and trace it back to God, that He's the only reason certain things fell into place. And it really goes into just putting the little bit of faith, the little bit of whatever, into God's hands and just trusting that He'll take care of the rest.
You're just thinking about it. All right. Obviously, the game came down to that last play, but those numbers don't add up perfectly without that play,
Yeah.
or the play before, or the
Yep.
play before. There's just no shot that could happen naturally. There's no mistake that those numbers came to that point, and it's just one of the coolest statistical phenomenons, people would maybe say, but in my opinion, miracles that we've ever seen in sports. And of course, it was from Tim Tebow, and Tim Tebow gets so much backlash. A lot of people
Oh, yeah.
think he's corny. A lot of people just don't like his mantra, his everything. But the guy really puts his heart on his sleeve. He really puts God first in every instance, and it's no surprise to me that if that happened, it happened to him.
Yeah, it's clear that he's not living to please humans. He's not
Yeah.
living to please other people. He's solely focused on being obedient to God. And that's amazing. It's amazing what happens when someone is available and makes themselves available, what God can do. Literally just through one simple act of obedience, the world changed. Like really, and so many people heard the gospel. And I think there's a really interesting point that, sometimes, God's always speaking through anything, right? And I just think of how often I make myself available to God, and compared to how much He's speaking in my life, And I feel like we can get so caught up in the football game, for example, like for Tebow, right? Get so caught up in that we miss the whole opportunity to learn and to grow and to share the gospel throughout all of it. And when you look at people in the Bible, right? Like Moses, David, Paul, these people just simply started by saying, okay, God, I'm going to make myself available to you, and you work.
Right.
And each through unbelievable ways, like, Moses parting the Red Sea, leading the Israelites out of Egypt, David being a part of the royal line and having that whole Goliath fight. Like, God uses that simple beginning step of obedience and just walking every single step with Him. And He can create something so much bigger than any of us can ever imagine.
Yeah, and to piggyback off that point, I want to bring up one of the themes that we talk about a lot in our Bible study, that you can't have Christ without sacrifice. You must die to your old self, give up control, and allow God to do the work in your heart. And I think Tim Tebow is an excellent example of that. In his starting quarterback position at University of Florida and his NFL career, he could have really used his platform to chase his own dreams, his own pleasures, his own glory. Instead, he walked humbly with the Lord, and God rewarded him for that.
Here's the thing. He had one of the greatest college careers of all time.
Yeah.
But when you look at his NFL career, people put the word bust on him. They say he's a bust. And I would completely argue against that. If you say in NFL terms, in his NFL career, maybe it didn't pan out the way he wanted, but compared to other players, he may have made one of the biggest impacts on the world in the NFL.
Yeah.
Now, sure, there may be some quarterbacks out there that could get in the Hall of Fame and inspired hundreds and thousands of kids to play football, but he had, in multiple instances, millions and millions of people searching verses in the Holy Bible. And I think that's such a difference. And really, there was no mistaking that. And yeah, he may have only played a little bit of time in the NFL, but he made the most of it, and God put him in that position for a reason. Mm-hmm. And he only put a guy that could handle it in that position.
Yeah, and I'm sure when he hears the word bust, he's like, yeah, right. And because like we talked about earlier, he's not living for approval of man. Mm-hmm. He's completely living for God. And I think just a verse to bring up here that just kind of ties in is Matthew 6:21. Jesus says, for where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. And it's clear that if his treasure was football, this would be a failure. You know, this would be, man, like, my career's over, my life's over. But man, he is still going to this day, just as passionate as he was back then, and just letting God take the lead and seeing just so many people come to Christ through his ministry. And he's not allowing those outside voices to dictate his life. He's just so focused on the Lord that it doesn't matter what anybody says. All that matters is God's approval. And it's clear through his story, for sure.
Yeah, and I think another good verse to bring up is Proverbs 16:9. The heart of man plans his ways, but the Lord establishes his steps. And yeah, so I think Tebow probably had an idea of where his NFL career would take him. Winning playoff games, putting up Hall of Fame stats, you name it, right? But that's not the plan that the Lord had for him. And just like you said, many people have called him a bust, but in his eyes, he just did God's work. And that's far more valuable than a Super Bowl ring or multiple playoff wins or a Hall of Fame career. He brought people to Christ, and that's far more important.
Couldn't agree more. Well, we hope you guys enjoyed that story. We will throw the link to the video where he describes it, even in more detail. We hope you guys go watch that. I mean, this story truly is one of a kind. Hopefully we see more of it, but it really is one of a kind and something quite special that God did in sports. And that's what we love talking about. These are the stories we want to bring to you guys week in and week out. But before we close this out, we hope you guys enjoy your Christmas break. We hope that you enjoy time with family and loved ones. You guys have a few words about just how people should look at Christmas as we move into this time of the year.
Sure.
Yeah. Just remember the reason for the season. I mean, in today's age, it can be so easy to get caught up in all the busyness around the holiday. But really, it's not about the worldly gifts we give or receive. It's about Jesus. It's about the ultimate gift that we received through God and just sending his one and only son, just like John 3:16 says. That's what this is about. Yep. And it's so much bigger than, just swapping gifts and doing this kind of stuff. It's about a man who was perfect, lived a perfect life, and died for our sins on the cross, and was resurrected and gave us a chance. And now we have an opportunity to believe in him and have everlasting life. That's what this is all about. And I just hope that amidst all the chaos, just that, we can spend time with family and just really think about and reflect on how good God is and just everything that he's given us.
Amen.
Absolutely. And I would say the conversations you can have right now as you go home and family members are around you, whether you're just curious and there's a family member that's strong in their faith, or the other way around, you believe you've become very strong in your faith and there's family members that you want to bring with you on that journey. There's no better time to have these conversations and just see what happens, see where God takes it. I mean, Christmas is here because of Jesus. So what better way to start that conversation? So we challenge you to do it. We love you guys. Merry Christmas, safe travels, and really just have a great time. And we'll catch you guys in 3 weeks. It'll be a little bit bigger of a gap this time around, but we're all going to go home and spend time with family. That being said, see you next time. Signing out from the Super Bowl podcast.